Welcome back to the show. Joining us right here on Dunc Holder, Sun Belt Conference Commissioner Karl Benson joining us right here as the men and women's basketball conference tournaments going on at the Lakefront Arena. Today is the Women's Day, as the men will get the day off, and then they will go back hot and heavy on Friday. Karl, we really appreciate you jumping on the show. And just a simple question, what's the benefit you feel like having the men and women's tournaments in the same venue?
Well, thanks, and I appreciate you having me on. And first, the venue out here at Lakefront Arena is a great venue, and this is our 5th year having the conference tournament in New Orleans. As you may know, we're headquartered. Our offices are headquartered in the Superdome, and our staff has the ability to be able to manage this event pretty much year round. And we bring all 12 of our universities, which means that they can all bring their bands, they can all bring their various media relations staffs and various radio networks, and it's everybody under one roof. Now it's a logistical pretty demanding 6 days when you think of 22 games, 11 men's games, 11 women's games that are spread out from Tuesday to Sunday. But we're trying to create a basketball environment and a basketball extravaganza, and we think that New Orleans is certainly the best site for it.
Karl, one of the great storylines this year in the state of Louisiana college basketball has been the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns under Bob Marlin. They're the number 1 seed in the tournament. They get underway tomorrow, having a bye. What have you seen from that program this year? Did it surprise you the way they kind of put this season together?
Well, to go 16-2 in any conference is a real tribute to a team. And in today's kind of college basketball world, there's so much, and I hate to use the word parity, but I like to rather say competitive balance. And it's hard to win 16 games in any conference. And you think about the travel that's involved and the demand on student athletes, and how hard it is to win those road games. So that is really an accomplishment. The consistency. They've got a very senior team, led by local Bryce Washington. I was over there on Saturday for their last game. It was their senior night, and they paraded 5 seniors out on the floor. And I think that's teams that have senior leadership and have veterans, tend to have those types of seasons. So, but they're very well coached. Coach Marlin has been around a long time, and he's demonstrated to be a great coach. And they come into the tournament as the number 1 seed and as the favorite. But what we've also seen, guys, historically, is that number 1 seeds don't always make it through the tournament. And in the Sun Belt case, as we've seen number 1 seeds go down, so to speak, the teams that have ended up winning, Georgia State 3 years ago goes on to win a game in the NCAA tournament. 2 years ago, Little Rock wins a game. So whoever comes out of this tournament has been tested and is prepared really well for the NCAA tournament.
Sun Belt Conference Commissioner Karl Benson joining us right here on Dunc Holder. Of course, their conference tournament, men and women's, going on in the Lakefront Arena. Karl, just give a layout of the schedule, because, like I said, women's play today, men take off, and they come back full slate Friday. Just kind of lay out the ins and outs of the tournament, and trying to mix and match, I'm sure, is probably a challenging schedule.
Well, today, as you said, is 4 women's games starting at 11:30 and going through the day. And I'd encourage fans that obviously they may not be able to get off work during the day, but they just want to come out and see a couple games tonight. There's plenty of free parking out at Lakefront. Tickets are really, really reasonable. You could bring a family of 4 for less than $20 and see 2 games tonight if you were interested. Tomorrow's the same format for the men. But I think really the day that if I was a basketball fan living here in New Orleans, the day that I would want to kind of set aside to come out is on Saturday. The men play 2 semifinal games, and it's usually those semifinal games that tend to be the most competitive. So Saturday 11:30 and 2 o'clock on the men's side, and then the semifinals on the women are Saturday night. And you want to make it a full day. You bring your kids out early on Saturday morning. There's a dribble drive, fan fest activity going on in the lakefront area on Saturday morning, and just make it a full day of basketball. And then our two championship games are Sunday, the men at 1 and the women at 6 o'clock. And again, we'll crown two champions. And tell you what's really kind of exciting is those championship games. If you don't get to go to the Final Four and listen to one shiny moment and see the nets cutting down, we have our own little mini Final Four where the players get a chance to cut the nets down, and the confetti comes out of the scenery of the lakefront, and we try to create that same type of Final Four atmosphere.
Hey, Carl, along those lines, I guess maybe not along those lines. That's probably not a fair way to lead into this question, but I'm just curious to get your thoughts. I mean, we've all read these reports out about the FBI probe into college basketball and the influence of shoe companies and agents, and it's leading to much bigger questions just about the future of college basketball. I'm just interested to know your thoughts on that. I mean, do you think there needs to be some kind of systemic change to the way college basketball is treated, or is that open up a can of worms from the intercollegiate athletics side of things and amateurism and all these big picture topics that we always try to hold true to in college sports?
I think that we've tried to hold true to those values, and in the meantime, the last 20 years, we've ignored what's going on underneath. And no one was surprised when they talk about the quote underbelly of the sport of basketball, and it just isn't at the collegiate level. It starts at the junior high, and we've seen the proliferation of the AAU teams and the travel teams and the 13 and 14-year-olds that are being recruited to play for team X, Y, or Z that just happens to be sponsored by shoe company X, Y, or Z. And we've tried to manage it at the bottom. Obviously, not as successful as we should have. Some people are asking, can we fix it, and what will it take to really return it to maybe the values prior to the early 80s? I guess it's been a 30-year process. I hope so, because it's a terrific game. It's got great fan appeal. It certainly has interest. I think the NBA needs to step in, and we're hearing that that they finally, I think we finally have gotten their attention to create a subdivision of the NBA that allows the 18 and 19-year-old to go directly to the NBA if that's their chosen field, rather than this masquerade of going to college for 1 year and then. So I think we're guilty of some of it, and we're probably guilty to some extent of ignoring it until it stepped up and slapped us across the side of the head last fall with the indictments and the FBI and intervention.
Sun Belt Conference Commissioner Karl Benson joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. Shifted back to the conference tournament. If Louisiana Lafayette, if they lose in the conference tournament, how much do you personally feel like you have to go to bat for them to try to get them into the tournament, given how well their season has been?
Well, up until last Saturday, fellas, we were prepared to do that, and we had developed a strategy. They got upset at home last Saturday against Little Rock. Put a little bit of a cringe on their postseason profile. We all follow the RPIs and how the various bracketologists use RPI. They were number 35 on Saturday with the loss to Little Rock. They dropped to 61, and that by itself is probably going to make it almost impossible to get one of those at-large berths. I think that now what we're focusing on is not just whether it's Louisiana or whoever the Sun Belt champion is how what kind of seed can they get. And all of a sudden, I think the seed becomes more important. And I think what we see with the seed, it's a lot easier for a 10 or 11 or 12 seed team to win a first-round game. I was in meetings earlier today with athletic directors and presidents and chancellors, and our goal now is to get a team that not only gets in the NCAA tournament, wins a game, which we've seen that the last 3 years, Little Rock and the Georgia State, but how do they win that second game and advance to the Sweet 16? And I think that's where you can really set yourself apart from the other conferences, if you can be one of those 16 teams still standing, in week 2. So hopefully the Sun Belt champion, whether it's Louisiana or somebody else, will get to that point this year for the Sun Belt.
Well, I'll do some lobbying for you, Carl. One thing I would say, all the years, my start in journalism career was up in Monroe. I covered Louisiana Tech, Grambling, Northeast Louisiana, so covered Sun Belt, covered the Southland and the SWAC, and there is nothing like a conference basketball tournament. I'm telling you, if you're out there and you're driving around, you're looking for something to do this weekend, go out to Lakefront Arena and watch these kids compete, because it is it's do or die, and the competition is so intense, and the dramatics, the theatrics, because everything's on the line for some of these kids. Some of them this will be the last game they potentially could play in their college careers, and the environment and the atmosphere at these games is just off the charts. So I know that we're going to have a great tournament out there this week. It's already started, actually, but the dramatics and theatrics only pick up as we get further along in the bracket.
Well, I appreciate that. That's awfully kind of you, and I'll give you a little promotional piece going back to you. I heard off air the promotion for Katie's and Scott, the interview that they did with Scott, the owner of Katie's. For the last 5 years, Katie's has catered our hospitality room out at Lakefront, and I can tell you that we've got the best hospitality food in the entire country at a basketball tournament with Katie's doing our catering. So there's a little extra you can get out of Scott the next time you guys negotiate your deal with him.
A little promotional bucks. I like it. There you go. Karl Benson from the Sun Belt Conference. Hey, Karl, appreciate you jumping on the show. Good luck with the tournament this weekend. And, yeah, it should be some great basketball. Thanks, Karl.
Great. Thank you, fellas.
You got it. All right, let's take a break right here on the show. And when we get back, we will switch gears for a little bit and talk with our own Jim Derry. He's covering the prep basketball boys tournament. Last weekend was the girls. This weekend's the boys. We'll get him to give us the latest there. And we will also talk Darius Geis and the questioning that surrounded him at the NFL Scouting Combine. Some fierce reaction. I've got some reaction from the league office. And I know the NFLPA has come out and obviously gone after this line of questioning. So we'll talk about that later on in the show as well. And if you want to get involved, phone calls are welcome. 504-260-1280 is the number to get involved here on Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Dunc Holder.